I need my alcohol. Okay, not stripping the screw would be great. Oh, glad I stopped. There's a cable there. That would have fucking sucked. Just shear it. Oh.
I'm going.
Really not a fan of the glue. This is promising. Is the heatsink? The heatsink is still on there. Cool. Wow. This is great. Okay. We already have our 1 hour long review of the Steam Machine online. This is $1,050 with a 512 gigabyte SSD and $1,350 with a 2 terabyte drive. So we're gonna be a little more careful with this than we might normally be for a teardown of a pre-built. But the step one to tearing down the Steam Machine is removing the front panel. That's better. So we're gonna take this apart today. So far, I've only taken this apart a little bit, so I needed to get in to just do the thermocouple installation, which you can see here, they don't ship with those, and then also to remove the fan for fan testing. That part's pretty easy. That should get us to the memory, where I can finally learn if we have 1 or 2 sticks of RAM in this. As we get into this, Valve emailed us to correct something that they said. This was a Valve statement, not a GN one. So when we were interviewing Valve in part of our review, Valve stated that the machines would come with either a single 16 gigabyte stick or 2 8 gigabyte sticks of memory.
The memory that's populated in the slots. Like, you know, at some point you might have 2 DIMMs, at some point you might have 1. It just changes based on the supply that we can secure.
The capacity is the same, but there are single versus dual channel concerns there. As we're preparing to publish the teardown, so after the review went up, Valve emailed us to say, quote, "We misspoke here. All units will actually have 1 16 gigabyte stick of RAM. It's possible that this might change in future builds, but the units that customers are currently signing up for will all come with 1 16 gigabyte stick of RAM," end quote. And again, to be clear, that was Valve's original statement, so Valve is correcting itself here. So the ramifications of this are, unfortunately, that means it will be in the worst configuration from a performance standpoint, particularly in non-gaming workloads. We're actually actively testing the gaming impact. We'll let you know how that affects it. The other implication is that there's a single slot empty, so if you want to look at it that way, it does mean that you could buy another 16 gigabyte stick and put it in there. Now, ideally, they would be spec matched. It's really not great to mix and match memory sticks for stability reasons, but anyway, we'll talk about that more in a performance benchmark coming up. We replied to ask Valve if it'll make any public note if or when it changes from a single 16 gigabyte stick to 2 8 gigabyte sticks, because people probably would want to know that, especially if they're, say, going to buy another 16 gigabyte stick and then it arrives and it's only got 2 8s. At the time we're editing this, they haven't responded yet, but it was the end of the day. We'll put it in hardware news if they do. For the basics here, so this is a pretty simple box. It is a cube, and it's got a big hole in the front. There's no screws on this side. And then on the back, we've got 2 screws up top. The bottom is just hinged on metal, and then the I/O doesn't quite stick through the plastic. So unlike some of the consoles I've taken apart over the years, this is way easier to do that first step of getting into without having to like pry a bunch of plastic clips and things. So that's good. And Valve is really targeting repairability on this. So they were telling us that they're working with, I think iFixit is the main partner. Don't know if there's others, to sell replacement parts of basically everything that is in the Steam Machine, which is awesome. That's what we need to see more of. I don't think they're going to do that initially because they need the supply to make these, and hopefully there aren't any broken ones right out of the box. But that's the plan, and that includes selling the power supply, which is custom, separately in the future, they say. So it's a blade connector. We'll get to look at that today as well. I have not gotten to see this with the heatsink removed yet, though. So we're going to look at that together. Let's get started. We brought you this video with our Steam Vent plates that we just launched on store.gamersnexus.net. These improve CPU and GPU thermals of the Steam Machine and add a dust filter while supporting our in-depth testing and our local team of 9 directly. We fully modeled the Steam Vents in-house, including months of R&D on design, structural rigidity, and slicer settings because we're 3D printing these ourselves. Our team here hand installs the 4 magnets with 3M VHB backing in each plate we print and preps the dust filters that we custom designed. Because Valve doesn't include a dust filter for the machine and it has gaping holes in the front. The Steam Vents come in a variety of colors, including blackout, a purple-blue color shift, orange box-esque color shift, an obnoxiously vibrant tricolor, stone-colored grille, silver blades, and a few blues. Our design is directly inspired by the Fractal Torrent, the best-performing ATX case we ever tested, and our homage is named Downpour. 3D printing is what allows us to move fast and make so many color combinations because we don't have to hit high minimum order quantities. It also eliminates wasteful freight hops and price hikes, tariffs, and bullshit because we just print it in the office and have our existing team oversee production. Then we bring it to the local warehouse team for assembly. It's also easier for me to sign these since we make them here. So I'm going to be signing the first 500 that we print, and then we'll distribute them randomly across orders over the next few weeks. We're also including a 7-year warranty, so if you have any problems with the plastics or dust filter at all over time, just email us and we'll swap it for you. The warranty even covers accidental damage, so if you drop it into a vat of acid, send us a photo of the charred remains and we'll send you a new downpour steam vent under warranty as long as it was by accident. If you're wondering if our product is necessary, the answer is no. It's completely unnecessary because Valve did a pretty fucking good job on the thermals and you don't need to buy ours. But we did an even better fucking job, and we have a ton of data to prove it. The end result is more color options, better quality control, and more of the money goes directly to my team locally to keep making videos. Grab one on store.gamersnexus.net. Back to it. All right, so technically the manual for this advises not to take it apart at any level for any reason, which is really, I think, just a liability thing. But the SSD is pretty accessible. We'll start there. So for taking it apart, I'll remove the panel. On the back side, this is kind of the most that I've done really is there's 2 screws. These are Torx 9, and they are captive, so that is awesome. Really like working with captive screws on consoles because sometimes they can suck to reassemble. Down here, this took me a minute the first time I did it, but you don't have to do anything here, no prying, no bullshit. You can basically just do this, which is also awesome. Like really simple, just folded metal, stamped and folded that sits over a lip, and that's it. Like now it's removed. There's some padding here. Should be for vibration. There might be some RFI stuff, radio frequency interference or EMI. They have to pass certain regulations. Sometimes you'll find pads for that, but it could also help with vibration and rattle, just since the fan is back there. And then now that we're into the main box, at this point, oh, the feet need to come out. I forgot about that step. So these are actually pretty nice. I remember when I first encountered these, I was really annoyed because I was like, oh, fuck, are they going to glue this shit to the chassis? Because that's normally what you see in laptops. They'll glue the feet in, and you have to peel it out and find a screw. Nope, it's just a piece of rubber with a screw going through it, no glue. Awesome. Like that's great, because normally this is the part where you start like destroying the feet of your device, and you only get so many kind of cycles of that before you need to buy new ones and stick them on. So very happy to see that as well. Okay, it's just come loose, so that was what was holding it in, not the strut things I took out a minute ago. Yeah, so now that those 4 feet are out, that was the only step needed to get this far. We're now disconnected from the chassis. I don't think I need the thermocouples in there anymore. I had these in the bottom chamber. So the reason for this is really interesting, and we talked about this in the review. The way this works, so if you don't have one of our panels on it, it looks like this, and that's pretty solid, obviously. Removing this or going to a flow panel like ours increases the amount of air going through here. But it does decrease the amount of air coming in the bottom because that's just how pressure works. So air is going to take the path of least resistance. The fan ends up being able to just pull it straight through the front with a different panel or no panel. And so the end result is this chamber gets warmer. So that's what we talked about in the review when we show the thermal numbers of every other component going down in temperature with no front panel or with our panel, but the SSD going up by a couple degrees. And the reason for that is that, where if you look at this is the front of the device right now. So that sits behind the big grill, the holes in the chassis. There's no smaller dust filter. This is what Valve ships. So that sits behind there. You'll notice these holes down at the bottom, those are another way for air to get into kind of that main chamber, but without being actively pulled through it as much, anyway, by the fan. The fan still pulls through here, just not nearly as much, which is why in the Schlieren imaging you only saw a little bit kind of drafting in there. But then really what's happening is for bottom intake, a lot of air is coming straight in through the bottom, through the grill they have in the bottom of the chassis, and some of it is entering up. You can see this hole here, and then it's back that grill that's like angled at the top side. It's going through that path. So SSDs here, there is technically a barrier. I asked them if this was for flow reasons, and I think the engineer said that it was possibly for EMI or RF reasons instead. But if you look at the bottom of the chassis, you'll notice this. This is intentional, this like black plastic strip between the back two legs. This is to try and prevent recirculation because your exhaust is here. And if it's at a lower fan RPM, there's a real risk, especially if this is against a wall or in a media center box, that it gets immediately pulled back in through here as it exits the back. So the air could basically go like that, straight back in. So this wall just goes down to basically the floor. There's not really any clearance there to try and help prevent some of that. And it does work. I tested it. So that was cool to see. Good engineering by Valve, despite kind of their form factor limitations. This fan is kind of insane. Let's disconnect this. This is a crazy fan. I'll talk about why in a second. We tested it on the fan tester and it has absolutely crazy pressure. But all right, shield covers a cable. This is now loose. That's our I/O board with 1 gigabit, unfortunately, Ethernet. I really wish they did more there. Get these large screws out to remove the fan. Now the fan itself has antennas mounted to it. When I first saw this, I was like, oh fuck, like this is not good, because I was really worried I was gonna have to, this board is glued to the plastic frame. They've custom molded this plastic frame. So the mount is non-standard. Valve made it to fit this heatsink, which is also interesting because you'll notice the fins are oriented vertically, more like a server style. And that's because they're going for that really high pressure. And they're using the L-shaped fin at the top to seal it like a box to force all the air through the fin stack, rather than what you typically see in a tower cooler, which would be horizontal. But anyway, this is glued to the plastic housing for the whatever it is, like 28 or something mil thick, might be 30. I think it's 28 fan. That's running an antenna. And so originally I was worried I'd have to disconnect it here, but no, it's actually pretty easy to remove it on this side. Just we have to keep track of which wires are part of which are socketed where. So now we're in new territory. So this follows, you can see they've got all these pieces. Those are holding the antennas in. That one actually did not need to come undone for the fan, but the fan cable does. Fan cable, if for any reason you're ever in here, absolutely need to support the connector housing as you remove the fan. It could potentially come out otherwise. And now this antenna needs to back out. Yeah. Fan is free. So we've got a very server-looking module here. And I mean, this is like super compact. It's pretty cool. So that's what they're using for all the cooling. Some fat copper heat pipes, vertically oriented fins. These are pretty wide spacing, which is to reduce the resistance the fan faces so that it can, if there's too much resistance, you're not gonna be able to pull the air through it. And then the fan itself is also pretty interesting. This thing is ridiculous. Notice how you can't really see between the blades anywhere from certain angles. So it's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blade fan design. That's just our tack sticker from our testing. And they're using really fat blades with a pretty gradual swoop to them. And so the end result is the pressure on this is great and the flow is pretty awful. Like they tend to be in opposition. You've got CFM and then you have millimeters H2O or millimeters aqua. And this is great for pressure, which is because it mounts at the back over here, and it's just pulling air through this pretty long fin stack. So it needs to have good pressure performance and also to pull through the bottom. So that's why they've done the fan like that. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. I did have to custom wire an adapter to convert it into a standard 4-pin connector. I didn't think I would have to do that, but they've got the labeling down there. So it's PWM is blue. Someone's actually marked it. F is for the fan tachometer, and then positive and negative on the far side. And if you look at one of our mod mats, so we've got PWM, we have TAC, and then we have positives here, actually 12 volts here, and negatives on the outside. So I did have to rewire that. If these types of wiring diagrams are useful to you, like it was to me a couple days ago when I built a fan cable for this, then you can go to store.gamersnexus.net and grab one. This is the GN15 model. All right, so this is where I stopped. Now we're in new territory. I really want to get to the memory on this. So this is definitely the power supply. See some massive transformers and gigantic capacitors in there. That's going to be a power supply. I'm going to start with getting every board off of this so I don't have to worry about protecting them anymore. So we'll remove the SSD. Some of these screws are marked. I was talking to Valve. They said they have an internal torque guide for every screw. They said the really important ones have spring retention, so that should be the actual heatsink. I did ask if they'd be okay distributing the torque guide to us to publish for everybody doing personal repairs. They didn't say no, but they also didn't say yes. They answered a different question. But if there's a lot of people interested in it, I could ask again, and they might do it. So that was the M.2 SSD. This just holds the cable in, so we'll set that aside with the drive. And there's the cable itself. Those just pop out like that. They pull from the metal. So this is communicating to the daughter board that mounts the M.2 NVMe SSD. That's got PCIe lanes going in it. And you can see they have glued that cable, which I'm not thrilled about, but I understand why. They're trying to compact it down. So glued it to the power supply, it looks like. We may have to unglue part of this. I really like that it's labeled. So it's got the SSD connector label. It tells you which side the SSD is on. It tells you which side the motherboard is on. That's the MB there. It's got a QR code. Like, this is awesome. This is exactly what they did with the Steam controller. And so despite all the pricing challenges for the Steam machine, Valve continues to, so far, we'll see if that continues throughout this, but build pretty repairable devices, which is nice. All right, let's get this one off. This is going to be DisplayPort and HDMI. You'll notice it's labeled. It's got a model on it. It has a revision number. This is great. This is like not cryptic. It's very easy to understand. Anything that makes it like in 10 years, if someone really wants to pull their Steam machine out again and something doesn't work, and they can just fix it themselves, that's always great. We're going to disconnect this cable. No cables on the underside. Top side's pretty simple. It's just our two connectors. Same thing. Cable's labeled. It's directional. The directions are labeled. So that's all good news too. Let's get all of the I/O off. This is the one I don't really want to deal with, but
I'm going.
Uh-oh. All right, so that's disconnected. So far, all the same size. I need to take this out first. This is the micro SD card slot. This is a pull or what? Oh, it's socketed. Okay, interesting. So they've got this connector here. Same thing, revision number, board name, all that stuff, all right there. A couple probe points, it looks like. That's nice. But there's that connector. That just goes to a micro SD card slot. And then that is reading through these pins. So it mounts there, so you got to be careful with those. Nope, okay. Cool, so that's free. Power button is over in this corner. You got a Quectel, I think that's a wireless, yeah, that's a wireless module, which makes sense because the antennas are right there. So that's wireless. These rubber pogos going through for the light diffuser. So pretty simple stuff. I think we have all the appendages removed. So now it is time to try and get into the device. Okay, not stripping the screw would be great. There we go. Okay, well, that's loose. Is that just the heatsink or is that everything? Oh, glad I stopped. There's a cable there. That would have fucking sucked. Just shear it. These you have to be careful with pulling onto. Okay, really not a fan of the glue. All right, sick. Okay, this is promising. Is the heatsink? The heatsink is still on there. Cool. Wow, this is great. Okay. Basically, the heatsink, it's fun. I'm just looking at these colors. They're kind of wild. So they've color-coded everything down to the springs. It's got like these Christmas colors here. Different springs, different colors. I guess they map those to torque spec, which makes sense. Spring tension, though, you should be able to basically just tighten it. We have a one-stick steam machine. If you're occupying both of the slots, that's going to be better for performance just objectively. It might not show up in some of the games. We'll have to test that in a follow-up. But it will definitely show up in memory-bound applications. So some of the certain types of like compression, decompression, certain types of workstation applications, stuff like that. Less common for this device. Gaming, we'll have to test it. So anyway, let's pull this. Patrick's going to need that later to know what we're buying. So this is direct from SK Hynix. So they're making fucking bank right now. It's not even going through a module maker that we know of. So SK Hynix DDR5 SODIMM. It is 5600. So they're hitting the advertised spec that they told us in November. That's good. We've got the part number here as well if anyone cares to look it up. So that is our SODIMM stick from SK Hynix. So this is the power supply. This is the whole unit. Looks like you could get in there maybe. You really should not open power supplies, just as a general safety disclaimer. This, like taking it off is one thing like this, but you don't want to open up a power supply unless you know what you're doing. It can be deadly in some situations. But that's the power supply. I'm not seeing a label. I wish they'd put a full label on it, but I'm not seeing one. What's the manufacturing mold say? Looks like, though, the plastic shell was made in 25 for us. Anyway, the way this mounts means that the air for the bottom side components, some of it's coming in through here, and that can come in through the front fan and a little bit through the bottom, but mostly that's going to be the front fan, which is why we saw the improvement we did in some of the thermals on this side with the front plate swap, because the only air getting in there from the bottom would be traveling all the way up through here. On the finstack itself, so this is going to be the top of the box right here. That is, we've got wireless and Bluetooth antennas here. And remember, they have a puck integrated in this for the Steam controller. So these two antenna modules are pushed up against the top of the box, I guess, to try to get better range. Now we can pull apart the bottom. They've got it numbered. I'm going to follow the guide. I personally don't fully loosen these. Sequentially, I like to do a quarter or a half each. We've already done all of our thermal testing, so at this point, we don't need the AB with valves stock application anymore. Motherboard models down here, F7F, MBH0, revision H. Even this retention bracket, which is fairly elaborate, is labeled with QR codes. Okay. All right, so we've got our Mylar tape there to separate it from the PCB, pretty standard stuff. Retained screws that are captive, plus the color springs on top. Set that aside. We should be able to break it free. Oh, okay. There's thermal putty. All right. This needs to go back together right away so this stuff doesn't get smudged. Thermal putty for the inductors, for the memory modules, and for the FETs here, the MOSFETs. Capacitors are on the other side, the underside of it, cooled by air only. And the reason you use thermal putty, so this stuff, this like gooier stuff, it's a better gap filler, and it tends to create a thinner layer than with a thermal pad. It's also a lot more forgiving with varying mounting pressures. So if someone were to assemble this and be a little off on one side or the other, this will forgive a lot better than a pad, which can create a gap. So those are the reasons to use it. It's a good material. It's just less common. And then if you're Gigabyte, it just liquefies and melts, I guess. I need my alcohol. So that's paste. No markings. All right, cool. So this is the CPU. That's an AMD Ryzen part. That's the CPU. This larger part, that is the GPU, which makes sense. This is going to be our VRAM. So another clue why it's the GPU, but Radeon style, top metal retention, the VRAM accompanying it. This is GDR6. And then for the rest, I mean, it's You could look at the VRM, I guess. We've got 7, 8, 9 total phases. There's a couple stray phases on the other side. Might be for minor power rails. So I'd have to map them with a DMM to probe it, to each device, but relatively compact VRM. And then, yeah, it's just going to be a big copper block on the bottom, connecting everything to the aluminum fin stack, which from what I can tell appears to be soldered to the actual base plate here. So that's good. So I don't think there's anything left. I think that's the whole thing. So there's some screws on the inside here. I don't know how well you can see them on camera, but that would allow you to remove the entire front mesh thing. So there's a couple screws down there for that. That's not going to teach us anything new. I mean, this was actually pretty easy. It's not bad. It's a decent amount of small parts. This is one of the few I'm going to reassemble immediately because I don't want to have to remember this stuff later. So we're going to do this right now. But it comes apart pretty easily. Things to know, you could definitely just replace the thermal interface material on both the silicon parts with any paste. It would be fine. And then the thermal putty is really important to know. That stuff, I would really just advise trying to not mess with it and don't leave it out. Don't let it collect dust. Don't put a hand down in it because it's pretty annoying to replace. Because to really replace it properly, you want all the same materials. So you'd want to remove it all and then put a whole new layer in. So anyway, pretty easy to work with, easy to take apart. They built it in a way where the heatsink did not have to come off of the PCB unless, I guess, you really want to take it off. You don't need to take it off to get to the memory, which is great because I personally, we normally don't want to tamper with the thermal solution a manufacturer installs for testing purposes. It's just better to not open it up. So easy access to the memory. The storage is the easiest to access because it's just right in the bottom of the computer itself. So that's a couple screws. You get to that right away if you wanted to upgrade it. Not difficult to do. You just pull the NVMe M.2 device and that's it. So overall, the assembly is good. It's very compact. It is not that upgradable or you could repair the device itself explicitly. It's very repairable from the sense that they've labeled everything extremely clearly. It's like the Steam controller. Every cable is labeled. They're all directionally labeled. The screws are labeled. The screws are numbered or colored in some cases. The springs are colored. And all that's great. But there's a lot of proprietary stuff. So it's not really upgradable other than the memory and the SSD. But yeah, that's it. I'm happy with the way it assembles and disassembles. This is pretty straightforward. A lot easier than some of the consoles I've taken apart over the years. So hell of a lot easier than the PS5 to get down to the silicon. So that's for this one. Thanks for watching. Check out the full review of the Steam Machine on the channel. It's up already. It is dense. There's a lot in there. And if you want to support us and you're buying one of these things, then first of all, congratulations on winning the lottery. That is awesome. I'm very happy for you that you've won the lottery. And secondly, you can grab some of our plates on store.gamersnexus.net. We have all kinds of different colors. We are making these ourselves in-house at our office. And we're 3D printing them. We're assembling the magnets into them at the warehouse locally as well. And we've got dust filters and all kinds of other stuff. So check it out on store.gamersnexus.net to support us directly and get a cooling fractal torrent style front plate for a Steam Machine if you get on the list for one anyway. I'm sure we'll talk more about that. Subscribe for more. We'll see you all next time.